This conference will now be recorded.
To start off our meeting, I'm going to hand the floor over to our fire chief, Chief Whittem.
Mayor, tonight we're going to recognize individuals in the fire and EMS services for life-saving events that took place in December of 2023. I'm asking those members to come forward, Captain Dillon right now. Members of B Shift, Captain Stegman, Driver Operator Chad Chambers, Firefighter EMT Jordan Gust, Firefighter Paramedic Donnie Dane. I'll ask members of C Shift, Firefighter Paramedic Dylan Hoffler, Firefighter EMT Carly Turnbull, come forward up here, please.
Come on up front here. Line them up.
Mayor, Councilman, our long-standing procedures we've done, we've recognized our wins so we can have life-saving adventures. B Shift in December was called to a cardiac arrest of a patient. Upon arrival, we found a patient cardiac arrest. Through advanced life support measures, we resuscitated the patient where I had a return of a spontaneous return of a pulse. The patient did survive, was discharged out after the hospital after a couple of days, returned back home and is having a successful life. Please be advised, only about 7% of the population survives an incident like that. That was the members of B Crew, Captain Stegman, Driver Operator Chambers, Firefighter Paramedic Dane, Firefighter EMT Jordan Gust, and part-time firefighter Christopher Smith, who could not be with us tonight because he's at work. David, if you'd like to do on to that part. Like we said, 7% of the population suffers from sudden cardiac disease and death. Less than 7% of them survive an incident like this. The return spontaneous circulation is a rare event to have done. This goes back to credit, besides our ability to deliver advanced life support skills within the field in a rapid time and a rapid response, the benefits of why we provide that service here in the city of Edwardsville. So that is one patient that we do have that has survived at this point in time. Firefighter Paramedic Hoffler and Firefighter EMT Carly Trumbull on C Shift responded to a choking patient who was not breathing. Choking is the fifth leading cause of adults for death in adults because it leads to cardiac arrest and secondary cause brain death. Most of the time we can resolve a cardiac or a choking incident because we have what's called the Heimlich maneuver. However, about 2% of those incidences go beyond the Heimlich maneuver because the foreign body obstruction is deep into the throat or the airway. That was the case with this patient where we had to sit there and take it in advanced life support skills to remove the foreign body obstruction and then still work to regain the airway on the patient, preventing them from going into cardiac arrest. That patient as well spent a couple of days in the hospital with discharged with no detrimental effects and survived that incident. These are two wins that we've had because we very rarely ever get to celebrate the wins. Well, we're celebrating these wins again tonight. So Mr. Dillon, Mr. Poplar, and Ms. Trumbo. Our commitment to providing the best level of care in the city has been committed since 2014 with Chief Thies when he was the police chief. Took over with EMS along with former city manager Michael Webb as a commitment from the city to the state council at that point in time. We also have several members of this group here tonight that are in paramedic school. Ms. Trumbo will graduate in June from the paramedic course at Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And Ms. Gus started her paramedic training just this month in Central Jackson County along with two others. So as we have continued to progress forward with our ALS delivery, perfecting our protocols, maintaining the cutting edge of protocol delivery and our rapid response time, we are still continually looking forward to putting our next generation of firefighters through paramedic training at the city to continue to provide that high caliber service to our residents. So here is some of our wins we celebrate tonight. I just want to sit there and let you and the council know that every day our men and women come into work to serve the citizens, and every once in a while we get a chance to celebrate the wins.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to scooch this way a little bit, tighten it up. Both ranks.
You do too.
Hey man, I was fireman of the
Back
year.
in the day.
I was fireman of the year 3 times.
I'm glad to see you.
And
Yes, they should all be right.
All right, on the count of three.
You work.
1, 3. Got a bunch of them.
good job, guys.
As a disclaimer, a lawyer took that picture. So. Mayor, the board back to you.
That's a retainer then.
On behalf of the governing body and our community, thank you to all of these firefighters who are trained, skilled, and ready to act quickly to save lives, impacting the whole world of both families involved. Thank you all very much. Okay, well, that's a great way to start a meeting.
Good crew. Yeah, real good.
Fantastic. Thank you all for coming. Item 1 on our agenda tonight is consent agenda. If there are no concerns with the items, I'll hear a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second?
We have a motion from Councilman Adcox, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Mullen,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yep. Yes.
Block,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes. Item number 2 on our agenda tonight is requests or comments from the public. If you'd like to give a comment, please state your name and address. There being none, we'll move on to item number 3. Item 3 on our agenda is old business. This is an ordinance repealing Chapter 3, Building Regulations, Article 3.01, General Provisions, Section 3.01.002, Contractor Licensing. This item was tabled at our last meeting to be considered at tonight's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1072.
I'll second that.
With the motion from Councilman Adcox, the second from Councilman Mullen, will the clerk please call roll?
Mullen,
Yes.
Bishop,
No.
Block,
No.
Shriver,
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 4. Allows council members to nominate a council president, which is typically done shortly following an election. This evening, we'll consider nominations for city council president in accordance with Article 1.03, Section 006.
I'll make a motion to nominate Margaret Shriver for council
Second.
president.
I'd like to nominate Mark Bishop.
First we'll vote for the first motion of Councilman Shriver. Since we have a motion that was from Adcox, second from Councilman Mullen, will the clerk please call roll?
Mullen,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
What are we voting on?
Margaret.
Shriver is council president.
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Item 5 is hearing a staff presentation regarding our city's comprehensive plan.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor Council. I'll call on Bradley Hokever, our city planner, and I hope I pronounced that. What he'll be presenting tonight is pretty in-depth annual changes of our comprehensive plan. He works with the Planning Commission all year long, and we do this every year. This is an annual plan update, if you will, and he has more of an overview of what those changes reflect. As you know, it's a very large document, and if you went online to the links, you'll see that it's fairly comprehensive. So he's trying to compact that for you tonight's meeting for future considerations of the ordinance to adopt that. So I'll turn it over to Brad.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As keep wanting to call you chief.
Hold that.
Tonight, there will be no action. It's just kind of a brief overview of some of the work that the Planning Commission has done over the course of the year. Our comprehensive plan was adopted in 2012, Since that time, there's only been one amendment, which occurred in 2018. Similar to what the Planning Commission is proposing, that amendment incorporated two planning documents by reference. The K32 plan and the Village South placemaking guidelines. It's a common practice to do these text amendments. Why we have not, I'm not sure. But generally, these plans last for about 10 to 20 years. If that plan is well maintained, they tend to last a little longer. So in general, the plan expresses the city's desire about future image of the community and how it should develop. It provides a framework for physical development and policy decisions for the future. And one of the most important aspects of a comprehensive plan that it provides the legal basis for some of the regulations and policies regarding growth and development. A good example of this is through planning and zoning. When we have a zoning case to consider, one of the criteria is if that zoning changes is going to be consistent with our vision and as expressed in the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, the way that we use these plans are to evaluate the development proposals, project future services, facility needs, and I highlighted these last 3 bullets because I think that's what these amendments are really strong in doing. Coordinate development within the community and form foundations for specific area plans in other cities. The last one is meet the requirements for various federal and or state grant programs. This is a key aspect when we go out and we chase grants. Oftentimes, those are based on kind of like a point system. And so we tend to score a little lower on some of those opportunities. The example that I gave to the Planning Commission was for like PSP, 2023 PSP scoring criteria. That particular grant had questions related to, does this plan, are there supplemental plans that will, that the city has adopted that would be in line with these grant opportunities? Or if you partner with a neighboring city or community or county, then those scores tend to go up and up. And so it's really important that when we develop these things, that we keep that in mind. As I mentioned, we've kind of taken maybe over a year to really piece all this together. It started first with the GODOT plan that I will be getting into momentarily. I then moved to the Kaw Valley Commerce Framework, which kind of developed as a result of the foundation of the TIF district off of Woodend Road. So those two items, those are supplemental or area plans. They're specific plans that could be incorporated to the much larger comprehensive plan itself. The final thing is the text amendments. I'm going to encourage the Planning Commission to look into other potential text amendments that we can make. A lot of our demographic data within the plan now is outdated. Some of the policies, some of the words. That's just a matter of, it's a 10-year-old plan. It needs to be updated. So without further ado, we'll get into the first item, which is the GODOT Countywide Strategic Mobility Plan. Lots of words, but a very, very comprehensive document that primarily focuses on transportation throughout the entire county. It primarily addresses safety, street design 101, encouraging to be best at the basics when it comes to designing our streets. There are other aspects that address transit. This doesn't really affect our community much because we kind of stuck our neck out there. We listened to the community, and we said, I don't think that fits in line with our vision for the community. But it's important to note that public transportation is not just a streetcar going down a single road. It can be like the mobile pantries or the pilot program that we've launched. It doesn't need to be a static stop. It can be kind of more than what a traditional transit might be. And then the last two things are key. It prioritizes connections and it directs investments into specific corridors. Locally, the plan identifies K32 as being one of those investment corridors. So what this document kind of does for us, it provides us with some regional context. It kind of forces us to look outside of Edwardsville because those improvements outside of our community, we can leverage those and build off those. And then we can work together with KCK, Bonner Springs, to collectively put our investments into a single project together that benefits and falls in line with how we envision. And what all plans should have is implementation strategies. These are not just documents full of text, but there should be some sort of implementation strategy. Connecting Edwardsville on 4th Street, prioritizing where those safety spots, and concerns for that, really focusing on how we can take those investments and implement change. The next plan is the Kaw Valley Commerce Center framework. This was a result of establishing that TIF district, and let's see, in 2021 we established that district. This job seeks to address those listed to the right there: job growth, retention, and diversification, infrastructure expansion, revenue diversity, and strategies that will improve our gateway to the community and public amenities. As I mentioned, in 2021, the governing body approved ordinance number 1048, which established the Wood End Road TIF district, which allows the city to extend assistance to qualified projects for the growth and revitalization of the area. Within that ordinance, it provides a specific description of the plan for each one of those areas. As you can see, this description is rather vague. If we look at area 1 there, which is kind of that L, this plan calls for 8 buildings utilized for a mixture of uses, including warehouse, industrial, office, and retail. It also provides some information on what kind of improvements. Again, this is fairly vague. Infrastructure, utilities, stormwater control, access, without providing where those improvements will be. It doesn't give staff really great direction to inform potential developments. So what this plan really does is to answer those questions. Provides a little greater visual context of where those improvements might be, what those buildings might look like. It expands upon those broader uses. And at the end of the day, this is a document that we can hand over to members of the development community, members of our community, to provide specific ideas of how we envision that area to be. So again, within this single document, you have information on the TIF itself. It expands on the desired use and development patterns within that area. It also provides some context as far as our internal process. what our review process looks like, what those design expectations are. And a critical part of establishing this district was the blight caused by the flooding area down there as well. So before you even submit application, it is key to have an understanding of this basic information. It also includes some demographic context. Where are our workers? Where are our residents? And why is this a strategic place to invest within our community? Lastly, it provides an illustrative vision for the area. No longer do we have to hand over this vague idea of what that might look like. We can now show developers where that sewer is, where that road will go, how we want that lane to be broken up, what's reserved for, the public. But the last item is the text amendments within our transportation section of the existing comprehensive plan. That plan included a call to action, if you will. In 2012, it stated that a detailed sidewalk and trails plan should be developed to specifically identify the key locations within the community that sidewalks and pedestrian trails can be connected to from, identify the physical barriers and preferred alignments for these trail connections, establish a priority list of desired construction projects. And I believe that is exactly what these amendments do. Leading up to the red line document before you, we took more than a year to look back at the plans within our community, the plans within City Metro, Wyandotte County, Mid-America Regional plans, to have a better understanding of what those current standards might look like, what are some possible connections outside of our doorstep, where are investment opportunities that we can pair up with communities around us. The next thing that we really took a hard look at was the existing inventory. Where are our sidewalks? What do they look like today? And where are those gaps within the network that lead to nowhere, or lead to unsafe conditions? So the next thing we tried to address was, where are those barriers and straits? I think this was one of the most interesting things to look at, because it's not just the obvious. It's not just the Best Creek or the highway or things like that. With that map to the far right, the heat map, that's showing where the existing driveways are located. And those clusters add to the end cost, because once we tear those up to place a sidewalk, we then have to replace that driveway. And so as far as wise investments, maybe that's something that we should avoid. The next thing that we looked at was safety and accidents. I don't think it's any surprise that K32 is one of our most dangerous roads out there. It seems that 40% of all crashes that occur on non-interstate roadways occur on K32. And those are all located within 500 feet of 4th Street, 98th Street, and 102nd, which tells me that, one, we have to address that. We have to improve those intersections by not only looking at sidewalks, but what the street looks like. How can we improve those trouble areas? How can we make it safer for not only cars, but pedestrians to get around within our community? And that's the next thing that we looked at, was who are our potential users? Where do people live? What assets would those people like to get to and not have a car? Where do the children live? Those yellow dots represent where bus stops are located. So those clusters are all together. We then have a clear indication that that's high density school-age children live in those locations who need to be able to travel our street safety if they want to go meet up with a friend down the block, things like that. And lastly, through all of that, we were able to kind of develop some trail types. In general, these are your connections that can travel long distance, so those are going to be a little bit wider, off the road a little more. Our local ones will be obviously a little narrow, but still provide that function of getting people there safely. The last thing we looked at was the greenway corridors. There's a lot of communities out there that are already looking at streamways, like a Betts Creek, for instance, not just to expand infrastructure, but to expand their trail system. They're off the major roadways. They're scenic. So that's another interesting opportunity where we can expand these types of efforts. With that, I know that you all have been doing a great job keeping these nice and short, so I was trying to respect that as well. But if you have any questions, I would be happy to address them now.
I had one question.
Absolutely.
On one of the Cobb Valley pictures, it had some buildings that were called highway support. And I just wondered if you could tell us what that meant.
Sure. So highway support, it should be included in that document to help you kind of elaborate on some of these uses. Those are really the businesses that someone can jump off the highway and rip through a drive-through, or if they're needing a place to stay, those would be ideal locations for those types of businesses or uses.
So maybe like a fast food restaurant or something like that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Through advertisement, they draw off a major highway.
Okay. I didn't know if I should read it as like an infrastructure type of like,
No,
maintenance
yeah,
or something, but that makes sense.
And that's a good strategy to have too, because if you do have people who are using that interstate, they don't need to come all the way within our community to load up a cash register. And
Absolutely.
So, those are the type of things that we kind of looked at. If it's a desire for the community to have more cash registers, fast food, where would that go within this? And that's kind of how we determine how each use would be kind of broken out like that.
Yeah, that'd be a great spot for it. I think we've talked about quite a bit recently diversifying our revenue streams, and this just goes hand in hand with that. So I think that's a great plan. I did ask for us to have this as informational this evening, so that because of the different pieces that come into the comprehensive plan, there's quite a bit to review. And so if anyone has questions for Bradley tonight, that's fine. But I did ask that we'd have at least until the next meeting to review thoroughly all of those attachments. And we'd also be able to email during the next 2 weeks if we have questions as well.
Point of clarification, you talked about the PSP rating system in an application. What's a PSP? What's a rating system? Very quickly.
Planning Sustainable Places.
Okay.
It's a program through Mark where it kind of, it's how we had the Connecting Edwardsville 4th Street plan. It came out of that funding opportunity. Basically, it allocates funding to create some of those documents that will then lead to engineering, planning, that.
So you submit this application and they give a rating, and that's through Mark, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. And I would be happy to provide you all with what that scoring criteria looks like. It can get pretty specific, but I think that was eye-opening for me to see that.
I think that would be beneficial. And I was going to ask as well, I think this was really helpful information. If you wouldn't mind emailing us like the slides that you presented this evening as we're going through the comprehensive plan, so we can kind of visualize where that'll be. Does anyone else have any questions?
I do. Can you elaborate a little bit on, did you say K32 industrial corridor? What, earlier in your presentation, what did you,
Investment corridor.
investment?
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of cooperation are you expecting to get from KDOT on that? Because we can barely get KDOT to do
Well,
anything
that's
on that
the
highway.
key. This
I want to make a couple comments first. If I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to be the old guy. That highway is nothing but a truck lane anymore. You've got they're parking on the side of that road, unloading trailers for the car dealerships. The one in Bonner is using it for his parking lot, for his car lot. The south side is truck rental stores. Now I noticed that the one across from our car dealership is now renting spots to park junk in. So, I mean, we're going to have to beat that before we can even think about making any kind of a money-making thing off 32 highway.
100%. And kind of going back to this light here, how is it used? I mean, we get those calls all the time, especially after those developments in Potter Springs popped up. We would get calls, hey, we want to do it, essentially exactly that. And I will always point them to one of these documents that says, probably not a great idea because this is our vision, and there's plenty of precedent out here.
Well, it's still referred to as the Caw Valley Scenic Highway, and there's nothing scenic about it now, anywhere from Lawrence, well, from Bonner Springs all the way into Kansas City, Kansas. And I think it's just disgusting that highway looks like that. And I would dearly love to see something nice happen to that highway, but you're going to have to get KDOT involved in that. We're going to have to be involved in that, and Bonner Springs is going to have to be involved in that to stop that nonsense. Put those businesses somewhere where they should be and not on the side of that major thoroughfare through Edwardsville.
Those types of investments are happening on both sides of our city limits on K32.
And I've been complaining about that for 5 years.
Again, we can control what we can control, and you're doing it right now. You've seen a comprehensive plan that.
I've seen it now.
Yeah. If you don't like the amendments or you want something added, this is the time to review and delve in. It gives staff guidance. This document, we look at it when we're talking to potential K32 investors, right? Investment in the corridor, those kinds of things, and what they're going to develop, how they're going to develop, that sort of thing. We didn't encourage those storage units, which we get calls on at least every month. Somebody wants to do that. Wood End Road, North, Kansas Ave, wherever it might be. It's because we refer back to this particular plan, the thoughts and the beliefs and the characteristics, the makeup of our planning commission, as well as the makeup of this body and their thoughts. And this is where we get that information on how we don't tell them yes or no, we just steer them in saying, well, this doesn't look like that meets this criteria within our plan. And so that's why this is important that we do it right, we do it, and we make it a point of reference on a regular basis. And these things change. This is not absolute. These are not shall documents. This is what our vision looks like today. But there may be someone who comes in and says, well, I don't want 8 buildings on this. I only want 4, and this is what it's for. And then we like that through the process. So this is a guiding document. It's an ever-living document, and therefore that's why we update it every year.
And I will note that this is a county document. County created this document. They adopted this document. So that should be a signal to us that if K32 is one of 5 corridors within the county that the county's wanting to invest in, that should provide us with some assurance that, okay, it's not just going to be Edwardsville wanting to make improvements off of K32. It can be tough to grab their attention when it's just us. But when there's 3 other cities and an entire county behind you, that's when you can get their attention. And I really think that this is that's what kind of great use that we can get out of a plan like this.
One other note on that ordinance that you would be considering, the Planning Commission deliberately put in that whereas down there that some of the GODOT countywide strategic mobility plan just simply doesn't apply to our city. So if you see that, that's the 6th, 7th whereas now. That's a lot of whereas. But you can see that they deliberately did that because some of it just simply, it's not practical. It's not what we envision anyway. But we want connectivity. But as far as sidewalks, for example, and trails, our connectivity is about our school, about another, housing development. It's not about going to another town necessarily. That may be consequential in some of our development, but essentially we want our people to be able to walk, and bike and recreate to these other places, our park, the riverfront. Williamson Farms, for example, or the school. That's more of what we, right now, is, as far as I see it, that's why some of our sidewalks just simply in, because that's where the investment, everybody wanted the investment there. You know what I mean? So I think that's okay, but that's something that you decide as a policy. But I didn't have the feeling that we were going to go from Southtown to Northtown and east and west just to connect other places that were somewhere else. It's about the school, the town center, if you will, the mobile home community, whatever it might be, the park, that sort of thing. And so if we're wrong there, we just need some feedback as well, because that's a part of this plan, that trails and sidewalks kind of addendum, if you will.
Yeah, and adding to that whereas that we just spoke about, I think we could probably all generally agree that these concepts are universal. Everybody wants safer streets. Everybody wants better designed streets. I think where there was some reservation was concepts about transit and what transit looks like in all communities across the county. I think some individuals have been pretty vocal about static bus stops and things like that. And yeah, so I mean, there are concepts in here that are universal, like I said, but maybe not transit or maybe not aspects here and there.
I think our action then is you will let us know whether we should bring this, if that's enough time in 2 weeks, because we can certainly give you more time. And if those links they're hard to manage on the website, that sort of thing, we can print those off. It comes with a pretty good cost. That's why we did it this electronic way. But you give us some guidance, Mayor, and then we can go from there.
And I think the electronics, probably fine unless anyone has technical issues. We'll let you know. Did you have?
Yes, I did want to make a comment. You brought up the accidents on K32, and I know this has been a discussion. I know Councilmember Malat has brought this up a lot, the speed on K32. I know we can't control it, but there's got to be, the numbers are given to KDOT, or there's studies done. They have the numbers of accidents. Do we have, I know when you're coming either east or westbound on K32 to 4th Street, the speed slows down somewhat. Does that happen on 98th and the other 2 intersections as well? What can we do, or what can we ask for? I know, like I said, Councilmember Malat's asked this before, and I know it's a KDOT.
Well, I think what we can do is just bring it back to the service as a discussion. And, it's just not for us to change. They do, of course, traffic studies and all that thing. And so that has to be somewhat a priority on their list. And how you do that is squeaky wheel a little bit, get the discussion going, and they're going to do the data, of course, and they're going to do traffic analysis, what has contributed to any accidents, that sort of thing, and whether that speed is truly a factor, kind of through engineering, right? So they're going to do a very technical piece of that, though common sense suggests maybe those speeds are a little high there, but you have a 5 wide lane road. But what you're slowing down for is there's an intersection that's controlled. Now, the next piece is they will allow us to control like a light at, say, 98th and K32 on our dime. That's very, very expensive. And that's what it comes down to, is that they're not opposed to that. They just simply, if you want it so badly, then you kind of have to pay for it. So, same a little bit what we have to do in our development down on Wood End Road near the 435 exchange. If we believe they don't have the traffic studies that support an additional traffic light, but if you go down there at any busy time, all the truck traffic and regular vehicle traffic, it gets pretty clogged up there because there's left turns, right turns, and it's not controlled well. But there again, that's shouldered on the city's down. It's a very similar concept. Now, your direction, we could certainly talk to the KDOT folks and just see, resurrect that conversation and maybe have some more relevant detail to now and see if they would consider maybe looking at that, whether it now or maybe in the next couple of years, get it on their radar as a priority. So we can certainly do that.
That might be something as we review the plan
Sure.
to make notes of.
And I think those are important questions to ask throughout, not just this process, any process in general. If we have a development that goes off of K32, it's really important to ask those questions about the amount of traffic that will be generated, and having a good idea of where that next point of access might be. And are those two going to be clash or cause issues? So while we're kind of at the mercy of KDOT for any drastic improvements off of K32, we can certainly do with our part by taking those things into account when we make decisions on our land use, our developments, things of that nature. So.
Back in 2010, Mayor McTaggart and I went to Topeka and met with Margaret Long when she was in charge of the Transportation Committee. And KDOT did do a study on 98th Street because that's when IRP was coming in, Old Dominion was expanding, and some other stuff was coming in. And the exact words in the email were, well, we did a study, but there's not enough roadkill. And they weren't talking about critters. And they said, well, you could do it yourself if you want. And so I got back, I said, well, just give me a ballpark what it's cost. Over $250,000.
That's in 2010.
That's in 2010.
Yeah. No,
That's
it's
for
very
signaling.
Signal
Is
lights,
that just
yeah.
for a study?
No, they did the study.
Yeah.
But to put lights in, it was over $250,000. And we would have to, they weren't going to kick anything into it at all. But they said, no, sure, go ahead if you want to pay for it.
And that's BPU that does that.
I don't know, but that's what they said it cost. But they should know.
Going back to this point here, see the future signalization is right there.
That
And
needs to
these are things that we can say, okay, if you want to do business here and have this, you need to help us improve this area here. Because we have an issue, we've done the study, we've read the books, and this needs to happen if this development will go through. So.
And kind of a closing comment on that, that particular district, we can apply a CID, and then we may pay for it up front, but we get reimbursed through the development, which is things we're always considering. And, right, community improvement district, CID, so that goes on the sales tax. So then we can, for example, they want to build a restaurant there, that's something we might consider. So to get that, you'll need that stoplight for that, particularly if you're thinking about, we call that the Mars property. And so if you're thinking about that piece, if they start directing, getting that highway traffic off of there and the local be a congestion zone, so they would like that. So signal that, how we would pay for that is through some sort of sales tax initiative, CID, Community Improvement District. And that's fairly common.
Both of those exits need lights.
Yes.
It's very congested down there during the day.
And again, I think I prefaced that for your
Yeah.
comments was that KDOT says we can put that there all day long, but we're paying.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Bradley. We appreciate you
Thank you.
sharing with us tonight. And then, guys, just take your time and look that over. We'll plan on penciling it in for 2 weeks, but for sure let us know if that's not enough time to review everything because it's quite a bit to dig into.
When you're ready. No emergency.
Item 6 on our agenda will begin with a staff presentation regarding the possible authorization of FTC Equipment LLC to design, construct, and install 2 custom modular control panels to manage sewer pumps at Wooden Pump Station for an amount up to $58,193.72.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, council, I've learned something just months on the job. Sewer, it's supposed to run downhill. At least common sense would tell me that. I had never been in this pump station, all these years passing by it. It's just a pump station, that sort of thing. But I've learned quite a bit because it became an emergent situation, almost to the fact that we almost had to do this emergent-wise and just tell you that we did it. So I'm lucky to bring it before you because we were able to stabilize one pump. And essentially what's happened, the big picture here is they have a computer, right? It's a control panel, it's the motherboard, if you well. And that thing runs all 4 pumps. There's only 3 pumps in the station, I believe, because one is out and needs rebuilt. That entire motherboard had a complete failure. It was somewhat expected over the years. It just kept hanging on, hanging on. It didn't know what to tell the pumps to do. They kept pumping, pumping, pumping. And that sounds like a good thing, other than the unified government couldn't control the chemicals and that sort of thing because it's so varied flow. So they were upset about that and concerned. Then the next piece is that it ran it so dry, we ran air in the pumps. Those pumps there's a heats over there. That's because they need that flow through them to keep them cool, right? So they weren't doing their job. Then suddenly the control panel is even a complete mess, and now we have nothing but sewer clear to the top. And it was fairly emergent, where about 13 buildings in the industrial, including our trash service, would have had a surprise. So through kind of just getting everything together, understand we're a little depleted on our staff who has some knowledge on this and that sort of thing. We just did the best we could. We called FTC contractor. There's a lot of equipment that they not only service, but they've sold us, and they warranty, that sort of thing. All that, they some of our equipment, it's 90% theirs. The motherboard is not. And so we sat down and said, well, we're not paying $800,000 a day to renew this whole entire station. That's just not an option, not even in an emergency. So that's what can we do next was the question posed. And what you see in the background before you is the solution. And UG folks agree with that. In fact, they've done this themselves. What we're going to do is have them design, which measure and put the proper panels in. These are modular panels that will control a pump. So plug and play, you're going to place it in. They'll design it, construct it, and put it in, and then service it. It'll connect to a pump. It'll also talk to the other one. That's why we're buying 2, okay? So they'll talk to each other. One gets in distress or malfunctions, this other one kicks on, and they can be programmed to say, you pump for so long and you pump for so long, okay? This is what we need to keep the flow stable, right? So it's consistent. So down the line, we don't have these other, treatment issues on the UG side, which I think provisionally they could, if we didn't fix the problem, they could probably, by our agreement, have some remuneration from us in some way or another. But in the sense that we will also have the 3rd pump available with the existing motherboard. We're just going to say, stop directing these other things what to do. We're going to cut it off, and it's going to operate like one of these modulars. We're going to get 2 of them for the $58,193.72. And we definitely need it. We really have no choice. Proprietary wise, that's where we're not going out for a bunch of bids. Like I said, this talks to all their equipment that already exists. They're already managing some of this in one form or another, and it's proprietary to them. They've measured, they'll drill the holes, they'll do all the things, and they'll put the monitoring. It needs a fan, some of these other things, because it can't be overly heated. It's got to be warm in the winter, that sort of thing. So there's lots of little things that go into it. But we strongly recommend that we accept the $58,193.72 so that FTC Equipment LLC can design, build, and put this modular system in our pump station. I'll stand for questions.
What is the lifespan of this?
Well, this
Approximately.
entire system has been since 1989 in one form or another. And I would suspect that these will last a good while. It really depends on what component you're talking about. What's happened is the motherboard, if you will, is just like a computer. It is. It literally is like, remember Windows XP or something old like that? That's what's happened to it. It's just got outmoded and it can't keep up, and it didn't get updates and things like that because it can't. It's so old. So that has been in for quite a while. I can't say how many years, but those pumps have been rebuilt a few times, enough that their lifespan has been well extended past any other manufacturing of parts. There was a time that our crew was ordering parts for these things off eBay and Craigslist and you name it, wherever we could find them. And that's where we've come to. So even the pumps themselves, besides the control panel, are pretty dated, and we should expect at some point to start replacing those with new ones rather than rebuild. Right now we have 3 rebuilds, and we have 1 that needs to be rebuilt.
there are no other questions, I'll wait to hear a motion authorizing the design, construction, installation of the control panels for up to $58,193.72.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Adcox, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Mullen,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Adcock.
Yes.
Item number 7 is city manager report.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Mayor, Council. Sidewalks are on, as you heard from the presentation. We have sidewalk project, which is Counts Lane, 104th Street, Williamson Farm to Edge Hill. There's a second phase of that we're looking at a more high level at this point that will go all the way up to past the Simmery up to Edge Hill. That piece of it. Right now, we're focusing on Metropolitan South. Right now, there are 2 crossings, one at the crooks of the hill, at the very top, and then right north of there, where that hill comes down to the most northern drive of the school. And why they want a crossing there, it makes some sense. They want to tie in their own sidewalk on their property. They have a kind of a walking trail and some of this, and so that you could be walking north or south and then come across there, should you want to. But the controlled intersection, or the controlled crossing, will be at that top of that hill. The visibility triangles, the side triangles are a lot better. And they will have their staff, the school has volunteered their staff for the stop sign, crosswalk guard, and there will be some electronic signage flashing and that sort of thing. So it will come up north-south to about that the crest of that hill, and then it will cross there and then come across the school property south to where there's a drive on the south side of the school. Sorry, I didn't have a visual there for you, but I'll have one. That's where the sidewalk existing connects, right at that driveway. And so what the intent is to get the kind of walking up to the school, being able to walk it from the school, and then you'll be able to cross to the west side, the Williamson Farm side, and then go north and south up through there. There's also, where our easement is, there's a connection from inside the Williamson Farms housing district to come right across and cross right at the crest of that hill. So I think it's a good design. They did the surveying, now we're in the preliminary design review, and that's what I've been introduced to. And what I'll do for you, and I've talked about it, I'll have the drawing, that's just kind of a common sense drawing, so you can kind of see exactly what that looks like. Here are a couple of obstacles. As you know, if you've driven up there, those shoulders, those ditches are pretty rugged, if you will. There's some steep parts. However, even more, a little bit disheartening, there's some mature trees directly in our right of way. There are trees that are in the way. There's just really no way around them. The farther they push, if you're thinking on the Williamson Farm side, okay, the west side, where it curves into Metropolitan, right there on that edge, it kind of curves in. Those trees are sitting right along there. There's also a piece of sidewalk. There's a driveway, a private drive, and then right from that, there's some sidewalk. We're trying to align and tag to that, keep it in line, and then come around that curve. If we push more to the road, which doesn't have a curve, right? You push more to the road, it's just, you're almost walking right beside the road. It's just impossible to get the width of the sidewalk without, we're gonna have to go straight down that line where there's trees. So if you drive by, you'll kind of have an idea of where those trees are. It's just unfortunate. There's just simply no way around. And I said, try, because we'd like to leave the trees in place, but I just don't think those 3 or 4 trees could be there. Right by those trees is a utility, kind of a ditch, kind of this kind of a thing that we'll have to work around and do something with, but that's doable. So we're well on our way with that. I think next piece of it is that design is about the best we can do. We're going to put some numbers to that. That'll be the next piece after I'll show you the map, that sort of thing. But the next piece, we should be able to have some numbers that we talk about fairly soon. And if we approve those numbers, the next phase is go out to bid for the construction piece. And then hopefully we're next school year, we have a sidewalk for them to walk. That would be great. And then we'll start that north end piece review. There's some survey done and that sort of thing. A little harder. That's more towards the cemetery, if you will. And we're going to try that. There's a lot of ardage in there, you know, a lot of right-of-way concerns, that sort of, but they're going to take a hard look at that. So Again, that's ARPA funded for our local funds are there, they're still there. We were hoping to hit that anywhere from that 1 to 135 to get that, what I call that elementary school connector sidewalk. And that's well doable, but we'll see where the numbers come in. We have, our sewer foreman is back in the office just doing light duty. We're well on our way with our software of our project management software, which already, Bradley, as you heard speak today, he is one set of eyes on there. He's a good younger technical guy. And we have James Haynes, who's on the light duty right now, working within that system to put data in so we know how to use it expert-wise. And so we want to use it 100%. Already they're praising the searchability, all of the things. So there's a great investment. We are already having meetings, kickoff meetings, update usernames, all the things, planning how we're going to map out our financial software. And what we intend to do is limit the migration of existing data. And the reason we're doing that, bad data in is bad data out. And we are very frustrated with that setup. So what we want to do is bring a limited amount of data in that we can start working with. And then there's other ways that we can bring the data in and still look at it without it commingling into our current financials. Does that make sense? And so we think that's the best plan. We thought 1 year to do that, but we can cut that back by maybe limiting the migration once we get the account set up. So we're excited about that because if you had one day, if you're ever in an office playing with financial records, you would be so very frustrated with our system. So, and again, the last thing we're going to do is our core records management system upgrade. We're waiting for the financials, these other things to get out of the way, so we have some time with that. But those were great investments already. I like the team that we're working with, and we're moving forward. Just a lot of ongoings at this point, and we're keeping you abreast as much as we can in the writing, and there's really nothing prevailing today that I need to report beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council comments. Councilman Mullen?
No.
Okay. Councilman Bishop?
Yeah, what's the status on why are we not moving forward with the buildings now? It always sees it's on hold.
Well, yeah, again, there's really no update beyond that, except for the mayor and I have conversed. Roger Summers has asked for a meeting to kind of get a status, kind of a kickoff. Quite frankly, I wasn't in support of, in the interim period, moving forward, just because there were so many other things to get to know, right, to just be introduced to. So now that we've got some of that, it's not so overwhelming. There's just a lot of things to do, but this could be added back as an active project. But I think that's really the mayor's call, and I'm deferring to you, and we'll be ready when we're ready, I think. So that's where we are at this point. I do know that I have posed a question to the unified government that the mayor and I talked about. I thought it was a good idea, bouncing it off of each other, that there's potential that the ARPA could be used for some of the infrastructure. There's infrastructure like the sewer, for example, that we're going to have to pay for if we move forward on the building. And that sewer has to be moved, relocated. We'll just dig a new hole and put it in, that sort of thing. But believe it or not, that's $800 to $1 million. And so the thinking behind there, because there are some rules and regulations that have made it difficult for us to secure the $1.3 million. And whether we agree with their interpretation or not, that's where we stand today. And so the infrastructures projects, I wouldn't say shoe in, but they're a lot higher, well evaluated. And so what we think maybe is the best thing to do is use that in front of bonding for the facilities. So you invest in the infrastructure. Therefore, if we use 1 million, for example, that's 1 million less we have to go to back bonding for it, right? We used it for moving and improving this infrastructure that needs to be done anyway. So that's one example already. That's kind of we're thinking. So sometimes the slowdown is a good thing. And so we need to get an answer. I've asked the county to at least say, what do you think about that? And reach out, and I haven't heard back. I was going to add to what's on everybody's mind is the quiet zone. It's on my mind as well. It's very frustrating. It's the slowest moving project. Even Commissioner Stites and I have talked, and I didn't get an update last week. I have messaged the administrator, KCK, to maybe make this a priority of, this is supposed to be, hey, there's a meeting with this guy or this guy, and we're gonna get you an update, and the update is, we didn't meet with them, and I'm gonna get back with them, kind of thing. So I know they're busy, I know maybe this isn't a priority, but we gotta close this thing out. This has been spending way too long. So those are a couple things I've communicated with the UG, a couple big projects on our way, and we're just trying to move forward. We've had trouble, somewhat confusion, and it does maybe impact you folks because you may get asked about it. The bus going to 98th Street on this closed road. It's open to local traffic. However, they've been sending the big buses up there for a few students and concerned the contractor a little bit. And so we've reached out to the school district, the contractor, our engineers, everybody you can think of is in loop on the emails. But in a sense, right now, the road is open to local traffic and the buses can go there. But there are alternative stops for the bus for those folks who do ride. However, there are some families that have some conflict of getting a kid to a remote location, either picking them up or dropping them off for the school bus. And so I've suggested a smaller vehicle from the school, maybe, that sort of thing. But we're dealing with that, and you may get calls on maybe some unhappy bus riders, but we're doing our best and trying to get some alternative locations and trying to work that out. I did suggest a smaller vehicle maybe for the one family who definitely has a conflict. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to run on there.
Councilman Millat.
You answered it. I was going to ask about the silent crossings. I think it's just ridiculous that we're on hold on that. It's out of control. It's ridiculous. 32 highway is a disaster. I want to say that. And other than that, no, I have nothing else.
Okay. Councilman Shriver.
While it's fresh, the sidewalk on 4th Street in front of the school. So that is a speed zone for a school zone. Would that change now that there will be a crossing when and if that happens?
No, we would want to leave that distance where it's flagged, right? There's a flag
Right.
for that 20 mile an hour, and that's also set in ordinance. That's measured. So we would leave that absolute. So at any time.
Well, I didn't know if it would get slower
But
when you got closer.
20 is a pretty standard number there.
If they
for
drive
school
that.
zone.
I'm sorry, did I say that? Sorry.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I think what will happen though,
Speed bumps or tire stuff.
We talked about that, but I remember bringing that up and Mark said that's hard on the cars, your police car or any of your
yeah.
emergency cars.
So
I didn't think of that, but
the type of road too would be a
Slow
concern.
you down.
What you'll get is a well-painted, a highly visible crosswalk with a lighted system that will, I think, if nothing else, that may be to deter anybody going 25, maybe down to 20, right? So, and then you've got the high visible sign with the, during the school hours, that sort of thing. That may add to just the visibility of deterrence. So I would say it's pretty standard to have a school zone about that 20 miles an hour.
okay.
I think really that doesn't the sheriff stay there? The sheriff, he's usually there
There
all
is
the
an
time.
SRO
Yeah.
assigned to multiple elementary schools,
Mhm.
and he does work for the sheriff's office. He's
Yeah.
contracted. So that, I believe his car is fairly visible, and
Yeah.
police cars are out there in the school zone. So,
One thing we could look into as well, I know there have been a lot of recent creative designs for crosswalks throughout the metro and nationally that just encourage cars to slow down just by how they're designed.
Right.
And so that's something we might be able to get creative with as well.
Yes, I do. I have a handful of things, sorry.
You're-
Please pass on to Chief Whittam
Yep.
and the B crew and the C crew, the firefighters, EMTs, and for what it's worth, all of our first responders. I know we have Councilmember Bishop, Councilmember Mullen, who are first responders, and I myself, I've brought this up before, have had to utilize Edwardsville first responders at my home, and the police showed up first, the firefighters, paramedics, top notch. And I know they see the worst of the worst. And so tonight, celebrating a win, as Chief Whittam said, so proud of them, so proud they represent our city, so proud of all first responders. So I would ask that hopefully we shout that out everywhere in the hot shot, on our websites, everywhere we can, just sing their praises. So
We'll get those pictures, we'll put it out there where we can.
thank you. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Seitz for him visiting our meeting last week and giving us updates on projects that are going on, projects that are slated for the future, that maybe are complete. And I do know, and I thank him, especially for you, Councilmember Malat, for that quiet zone. I know that it's become an extremely frustrating situation. So one more congratulations to the newly appointed and the reappointments on the Planning Commission Board, CPPS Board, and the Edwardsville Fund Advisory Board. I myself have sat on the Edwardsville Parks Board. Now that has turned into the CPPS Board for 23 years, I believe. It is extremely hard to find people to serve on these boards. I beg people, if you have friends, if you have somebody who wants to remotely get involved, it's not too much work. It's nothing hard. It's just part of giving back to your community. So I applaud anybody that has served on these boards and is going to serve on the boards. I think everybody else up here has served on boards. So congratulations to them. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Adcox?
I don't have anything.
Oh, sorry. One more thing.
Okay.
Bradley, thank you for your presentation. Sorry.
That's okay.
Windy tonight.
No, you're good. Well, we will get wrapped up here. Councilman Trevor covered a lot of it. So once again, thank you for the firefighters that came in tonight. I know they've probably gone on home to be with their families, but what a great way to start a meeting and even to start the year. I'm sure we're thankful, but the families who were directly impacted, I'm sure just couldn't be thankful enough. That's amazing. Thank you to those willing to serve in those appointed roles. I think that's a great service to our community to have community members representing our city with those voices on the CPPS board and the Planning Commission and the Edwardsville Community Fund. And so that's a really big deal. And so we don't want to take that time for granted. Saw Officer Haas was Employee of the Year for 2023. So we didn't want to miss the opportunity to congratulate him for that.
He's accomplished quite a bit.
That's fantastic. And to be nominated by his peers, I think
Yes.
says a lot for him. So a lot of great things going on coming up. And we'll wrap it up with that. Thank you.
Good job.
Oh, God.